You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information.
All right, standing by for live on Facebook.
I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. I said, hey, welcome to the Man Cave Happy Hour. We're gonna drink a fine whiskey and smoke a really fine cigar.
Jamie, we're ready to begin, except we don't have a host.
Oh, there he is.
Welcome to Facebook. This is Man Cave Happy Hour, and I'm not your host, but here he is.
That's funny.
It is time for happy hour. It is the Man Cave Happy Hour, whiskey, cigars, spirits, and stories that go along with it. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Hey, good afternoon, good evening in podcast world. I am Matt Fox.
And we have Joe Lewis Bourbon on tap again. Tasting Tuesdays with Joe Lewis Bourbon. You guys, thanks for always being such gracious hosts and having us along to have some fun with some bourbon and stories. And we have both today. We have a bartender on tap and we have a master storyteller on tap for you guys today as well.
Yay.
JJ, Peter, the owners are here with us. Michael is here. He's getting the word out nationwide. And Tara's going to be pouring some drinks. Charles Avison, he wrote the book called Detroit, City of Champions. It's all about the 1935 year and how Detroit became such an iconic city for sports and how Joe Lewis is a massive, colossal part of that iconic sports heritage in Detroit. And we're excited for the conversations tonight. Peter, what is your main question? Peter was like so excited that he got to talk to Charles. Was there something in particular, Peter, that you wanted to ask Charles?
Well, yeah, I think that I was really amazed when we peel back the layers of Joe Lewis's life. We just keep finding so many more important pieces of Americana. And I think people my generation don't really remember Detroit as the roaring, thriving metropolis where everything was cool. And to me, 1935 was a moment in time where Detroit was the coolest place on the planet, really.
Right.
And they even had a holiday called the Champions Day, and I know you were kind of a part of that. And I've been dying to know whatever happened to Champions Day and where is that in Detroit these days?
That's like one of the best questions I've ever had. I just want to let you know that because, and the reason I say that is because I never get a chance to talk about Champions Day. I never get a chance to talk about it, unless, of course, we're doing it on Champions Day. It's April 18th, and I usually do a speech over at the Historical Museum on the 18th. We have a big group of people that still celebrates the day, so it's like that's about the only time that conversation ever comes up. So that's a great question. And so the idea just to talk about Champions Day for a minute is that throughout the course of the year, so in Detroit 1935 you have 33 championships in the same season. All right, which is like a ridiculous. I mean, 33 championships. Like, is there even that many sports? First of all, and the answer is yes, there was. And the further answer is that they won them all that year. And so at the finale of the season, they threw a party at the Masonic Temple in Detroit. The governor of Michigan declared Champions Day for the state. This Detroit City Council declared Champions Day for the city. It was a huge party. Joe Lewis was the guest of honor. Tigers, Lions, Red Wings were all there. All the other athletes from the season were all there. I mean, they called it the greatest gathering of champions under a single roof in history. That was sort of the bill for the party. That's like how they built the party. And so I mean, it was they did a radio broadcast that day. The Detroit Times, which was the third newspaper at that time, they were actually the ones that sponsored the party, and so they issued a commemorative newspaper for that day. And if I had any notion that you were going to ask that question, I would actually have had there's only one known original copy of the newspaper that was issued on Champions Day, and I have it. Like I actually, nice. And like the story of acquiring this newspaper is actually like I actually wrote a passage in a book about how it was acquired because it's so crazy. But it's actually signed at the top of the newspaper by three of the Tigers' best pitchers in 1935. It's like literally priceless. Like I wouldn't sell it for anything, but. If I had any idea you were going to ask that question, I would actually have that out, but because I got it like in a glass case, the equivalent of a glass case. I don't really show it off, but.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine today getting the members of the if they were even having a moderate season, the Lions and the Tigers and the Wings and people from boxing together? I can't even fathom trying to get all those people together in today's culture. So why, Charles? Why do you think the day isn't celebrated as overtly as it used to be?
Well, I mean, that's the question that ties into the entire forgotten component of the story itself. Like, why is the entire season forgotten? You see what I'm saying? Like this, and I say forgotten. I mean that with the very definition of word. If you look in virtually any Detroit sports history book, there's no mention of. First of all, there's no mention of Champions Day. That's number one. I mean, there's my book was the first one to even mention the fact that Champions Day even existed. A friend of mine and myself created the Wikipedia page for Champions Day, which is like become like all of a sudden it's like we started off as like one page when we first made it. Now there's like 30, like it's the equivalent of probably 30 pages long just from all the stuff that's like attached to it. But the season has been forgotten. I mean, every once in a while, if you read a Tiger history book, they talk about the Tigers winning in 1935. You read a Lions history book, they talk about the Lions doing it, but there's nothing that ever talks about all of them doing it at the same time or all the other championships that won at the same time. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, it really ties into the larger question of how the season itself was forgotten. And, besides, because if nobody remembers the season, then how can they remember the day that celebrates it? You see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the part of the larger question. That's a longer story, I think. But the idea with anything, like somebody told me one time, like, there's holidays for everything. There's like National Milk Drinking Day, and there's National this drink, whatever day. And my response, so they try to diminish the concept of the Champions Day, going, oh, well, they, Champions Day, celebrate everything. And I told them, I said, of course, it's only worth celebrating if you like want to celebrate it. I understand that concept, but I think this is something that should be celebrated. That's, we're trying to bring it back. So,
when I read about Champions Day and your activity around it, one of the things I saw that you've been quoted on was when you said, how do you bring back a forgotten holiday?
Yeah.
And for us with Joe Louis, when we really discovered who he really was, beyond just that, he was a great fighter. One of the big challenges we face is how do we really connect the brand to all those same larger themes, that Champions Day was part of. And that's what we're really trying to make certain of, is that we look very, very carefully at the man and what he meant. And he meant a lot to people in Detroit. And really Champions Day was, certainly there were all the teams out there, but Joe Louis was broadly recognized as the most fantastic athlete of all of them.
Absolutely. Agree. 100%.
So it's pretty amazing, Squad. And I was thinking about that and the things that you've written, and it reminded me a lot of our challenge. Making this all happen. So I really appreciate that a lot.
Yeah, well, Joe Louis, Joe Louis emerged. I mean, I spent years studying all the story, and Joe Louis really emerged as my favorite athlete of all of them. I mean, his story is just remarkable. It really is. And so I applaud you for your efforts and everything too. So
thank you. Appreciate it. Now wait a sec, you have a lovely lady in this audience with us. Nobody's introduced her. You're killing me.
Tara is a bartender, and when bars and places of business are open, it's the Detroiter or Detroit?
Detroit.
The Detroit Club, and there's a bar inside there called the Library Pub.
The Library Bar.
The Library Bar, and it is it is swanky. It is it is, gentlemen, you want your bourbon in there because it is one of the fancy pants places in Detroit. It is one of the destination craft cocktail bourbon lounges in the city. Tara, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're gonna have you thought up of a few concoctions or recipes or cocktails for us, but you've been hanging on to this bourbon for a week now. Has it been difficult to hang on to this and not at least give it a taste or a smell to kind of figure out what you're gonna do with it?
No, I did taste it, a little bit of it, but I've been really good.
Okay, fair enough.
My kids keep me occupied, so
Fair.
it's kept me very good.
All right, so we asked you to come up with a couple of recipes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you tasted the bourbon, as far as compared to other bourbons, what were you tasting? What were you smelling? What were you getting, Tara, out of Joe Louis bourbon?
Well, I have some, so I'm gonna pour some right here.
Hey,
But everybody's got some but me, man. Like I got
No, you're not alone. I drank on mine already.
Fix that, I promise.
Let me get some of that. I love that. I have a feeling it's really good. Everybody's loving it over here. You know,
It's super sweet when it first hits your palate. At least to me, it starts out super sweet, and you get a lot of the flavor right in the middle, and then it finishes. But the majority, the height of it to me is right in the middle of it. So it starts sweet, kind of goes up, and then it finishes nice and smooth. It's got good flavor though.
I've heard people say that. In fact, my son, that you just kind of repeated exactly what he would say about it. And I think it's the high barley. We've got a high barley count in the bourbon. Mm-hmm. When that drops off on the back and it goes smooth and peppery, I think that's really the higher barley count, which is a bit unique. And I agree that that corn, we got all that corn in there, and it comes.
What is your mash build?
66-14. I know that off the top of my head, but I don't.
Michael's got it. It's 66% corn, and then Michael, what else is in there?
It's 66% corn, 14% rye, and 20% barley.
Okay, so the spice you're getting at the height of it is the rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, what did Meatloaf say about 2 out of 3 is not bad, right?
All right, so Tara, when you taste the sweetness in the bourbon, and you're like, okay, I'm going to use this in a cocktail. Where are you going to go with it? What's the first recipe you came up with?
So the first one, I have all the ingredients, so I can make them right on hand.
Yeah. Do it. I would, I'm jealous that we won't be able to try it, but I'd love to watch it.
I'll drink it for you.
Watch you work your magic and put one together.
My computer back. All right. So I have a shaker, and I am going to take. So I made just a simple syrup. I used black tea in mine, so just brewed some regular black tea, like a cup of hot tea, and then added equal parts sugar to thicken it up and kind of make a sugar syrup. Mine is oolong tea because it's what I had on hand. So I'm going to do a ½ ounce of oolong tea. Right in. And then I have some lemon juice. I keep fresh lemons and limes in my fridge pretty much all the time because I'm always making cocktails. Fresh is the best to use, but if you have something else like a little lemon concentrate, you could use that. I would just use a little bit more syrup because that tends to be a little bit more acidic. So then I am going to do lemon, jump it right in. So ½ ounce of each, and then I'm going to do 2 ounces of the bourbon. Jump it in. And then you have to excuse me because I have to grab ice. I didn't bring it with me because I didn't know how long I was going to be not doing that.
No, do your thing. Do your thing.
Hold that thought for 1 second.
Well, while Tara's grabbing her ice, Charles, when she's done making this first drink, I want you to kind of tell us, just give us the the elevator pitch on the book about the Detroit City of Champions and what's in the book. But we're also going to find out from Al and from Ron where it's available, because there's a whole lot of new places. You guys have been taking names and kicking butt and getting the product into some stores. So we're going to find out. Al, you're from down south, right? You're covering the southern hemisphere for us.
I'm actually in Michigan.
Oh,
welcome.
All right, Al, I thought you were a little further south.
No, in Michigan.
Okay.
So basically kind of like Metro Detroit, north suburb. So Sterling Heights, Rochester Hills, Clarkson, basically all the way north. So,
cool. All right, we're going to find out what places are carrying it after Tara mixes it up a little bit. You got your ice?
I do. I have my ice. Cool. So fill the ice, just shake it. And you can use a shaker like this, or I know a lot of people at home tend to have the cobbler shakers. You could use either or.
Oh, that noise, that sound.
That's nice.
And then just dump it right in your glass. And then I'm going to top mine with a little bit of Angostura bitters. You can find these at Meijer, Target, pretty much any store. My label fell off, so Forgive me for that. And then I'm just going to go right over top with some bitters.
Oh, it's delicious.
So yeah, have you guys ever? That looks fantastic.
Hey,
Look at that
Tara, can
color.
I ask a question?
Wow.
Yeah.
When you made your simple syrup, you used a specific kind of tea?
So you can use any kind of black tea because black tends to be the strongest. And oolong black tea was what I had on hand. But you could use any black tea. You could use Earl Grey or breakfast tea or anything like that.
Neat.
Make it so.
So I have an ingredient that I want to ask you if you've ever played with.
Okay.
1821 tincture. It's the ginger lemon tincture.
Mm-hmm. Specifically, not that one. I have some ginger bitters at work that I keep on hand. They're really good if you're just looking to add a little bit of a light flavor to it, depending on what kind of cocktail.
I've been using this with basically doing in place of bitters for a Manhattan, a dry Manhattan. In other words, not a lot of rest, just and a little bit of this, and it's been really nice with the Joe.
Oh, I'm sure. It probably adds a little bit of spice to it.
Yeah, and then I got one more. Let's see.
Where do you get all the wonderful toys?
Hibiscus.
Well, hibiscus
bitters.
is good because it has a little bit of sweet and almost fruitiness, but a little bit of bitter on the end too.
Yeah. So, Jamie, the answer is that 1821 bitters, I don't know if you guys have them in Michigan. They're pretty much getting all over the place, but they are made right here in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta. And what's cool about it is there's a place that is called Ponce Market here when it was open before we were all shut down. And there's a lot of different shops in there. And they actually have their kitchen where they make this, but they supply, all over the country. So they'll have cocktail classes. And I've gone to a number of them. And you get to experiment and try new things. So we have to get them some Joe for their next cocktail class. But
yeah,
you're going to come back to Charles with a couple of questions.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, Charles. So the book, you wrote the book just because it was like such an undiscovered history. Just what is the crux of it? What caught your attention first about that 1935 year?
Well, the whole thing for me started, I was a senior at Western in 2005. And I had a sports history class that I was taking. And I just come back from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland with like a research history. Like I was like, it's been a year. Like, I mean, it was just this, I've been, it's studying to be like a research historian, my whole life kind of thing. And in my senior year at Western, I'm taking this sports history class again, like it's like a basket weaving class, right? Like I'm like, this is going to be fun, something like, burn a couple credits off. I've been saving something like this. Anyways, at some point, me and my friends were hanging out in my apartment one night and just like drinking beers and that. And we had one of my friends had a Detroit Tiger media guide, and we were just going through random trivia questions, I guess. And one of them, I was like, well, what year did the Tigers win their first World Series? I'd never even known that. And so we looked it up. It was 1935. And then at the bottom of the page, it said, did you know that not only did the Tigers win their championship, but the Lions and Red Wings had won theirs too in 1935. And I was like, I had never heard that. I'm a diehard Detroit sports fan. I've read all the, I know at least know enough to know the main stories, and I was like, that seems like a pretty big story to know about. And how was it? I wasn't sure how was I never knew that before. So anyway, so I made it the subject for this sports history class, try to write a 2-page paper for this class and could not find enough information to fill a 2-page paper. And that's what really kind of jumped out to me was like, I mean, like I say, I'm a research historian. I just got back from the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. Like I can't write it. I'm either a horrible researcher because I can't find enough information for the 2-page paper, or there's no information out there, you see? And so I kept on, pursuing it a little bit, and I made it my thesis to graduate from Western. And when I went to the original newspapers is when it really opened up. I was like, oh my God, like this like every single day is like Detroit City of Champions. This team just did this, and this team just did that. And it was like, and so I wrote this. I mean, at first I was like worried about filling a 30-page paper. But then, but once I opened up the original newspapers, I'm like, 30 pages isn't even going to be enough. Like this is the biggest story I've ever seen. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And so, I mean, I did the thesis, so I did the thesis, and then after I graduated, it was like, I kind of put it on the shelf for a couple of years. But the more it was like on the shelf, the more it was like kind of saying, it's not finished. It's not finished, And so I went back. So I actually thought about the idea, like start my own company up, like a publishing company, writing a book on this thing and kind of launching the company with my first book. And so I did. So I started going to the Detroit Public Library and really making like a full-time investigation of it. And really the big thing for me was like when I was writing that first book is I'd never heard of Champions Day. I'd never heard of it. And I remember that I'll never forget the moment I was sitting there in front of this microfilm reel and just reading about Champions Day. And I'm like, my God, like there's a holiday that celebrates this year. I mean, I couldn't believe it. But the more unbelievable thing is almost like a sense of it was more of like a sense of like fear than anything. It was this weird sense of like, now it's your responsibility to tell the world, like, because nobody, when's the next time somebody's gonna be sitting in a microfilm lab looking for information on this particular year? I mean, nobody's done anything about it for 80 years. Like, when's the next time?
Charles, April 18th will never be the same for me again.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and have a look at the Wikipedia page because it's fascinating. The like 90% of the Wikipedia page is just like I check it every once in a while, and it's just new information that every time somebody puts their newspaper archives online, it just gets linked to the page, and it's like I learned just from reading the Wikipedia page.
We should at least throw a party, for God's sakes.
Well, we do every April 18th. We have a huge party at the Masonic Temple in Detroit. Last year was free beer from the Eastern Market Brewing Company.
Where was my invite? That's what I wanted.
Wait, we were all going to throw a big party on April 18th.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that was when Joe Louis was supposed to debut at the Michigan State Golden Gloves tournament.
Oh, well, the historical museum has a replica of the Lindell Bar in their museum, and so they use that as a double occasion to like bring in actually kegs of beer from the Eastern Market Brewing Company. Has been great. They've been sponsoring the party for like the last 3 or 4 years, and so they brought in kegs. They actually have a City of Champions IPA, which is like 10% beer, liquor, whatever. That's what I was drinking there last year. They had a couple too many, but maybe not two not enough,
I love it.
So Charles,
so it just evolved. It just evolved.
I've had some snacks delivered while we were talking.
It evolved. So one book. So I wrote the first book on the story itself, and then when I was done writing the first book on the story, I realized that there was still way more that needed to be done because even when I was finished with the first book, the players themselves were just as forgotten as the story. And so I kept on pursuing. So I spent another 6 years working on I wrote 2 more books on it called The Players. And so I've got 3, but really I call it the City of Champions trilogy. And then now I've actually got a screenplay for a movie. I wrote it's about 700 pages long. I spent a year writing that. So I actually have a screenplay for a miniseries, like a Netflix miniseries, all ready to go. I mean, it's ready to go as soon as I can.
I think you could build it around Joe Louis, man.
Oh, Joe Louis, he's the first 2 episodes. It's all Joe. It's the first 2 episodes.
Yeah. We fell in love with Joe Louis, I've told this story too many times, but I went to his gravesite, and I've got to tell you, the energy is there.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Joe Louis is that, there's been all these Hollywood movies about like Muhammad Ali. There's been a movie on James Braddock for the Cinderella Man story when and that took place in 1935. There's one on, like The Raging Bull. There's numerous boxing movies out there. The astonishing thing is there's never been like an A-list Hollywood movie made about Joe Louis. And that's what's so crazy. Like, I mean, the story of Joe Louis, especially 1935 Joe Louis, my favorite comparison is to use Cinderella Man, the movie Cinderella Man. If you guys have been, if you all have seen Cinderella Man, starring Russell Crowe, $100 million Hollywood movie.
When I look at some of the old film of Joe's life, those films were made in a period of time where African Americans were not provided with a platform to really be presented the way they were.
Well, but I'm saying like
there's a lot of Jim Crow. There's a lot of Jim Crow in those early movies.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like nowadays, you know, I'm in the 21st century. There's been, you know, there's a movie on Ali, you know,
Right.
There's a movie on James Braddock, there's a movie on all these guys, but where's Joe?
Well, JJ can tell you a little bit about that. Jay, JJ is JJ and I founded this company together, by the way, Charles.
Okay.
And Jay, why don't you talk a little bit about that? You know, there was in fact a Save Me Joe Louis project.
Yeah, we was getting ready to do a presentation, and all of a sudden we got an email that asked us to watch a video, and it came up. Charles, if you send me an email at jj@joelewisbourbon.com, I will send you the link. It's not a public video, but it was a story of Joe Louis, and Save Me Joe Louis was the movie. You had Lou Gossett Jr., Oprah Winfrey, Denzel Washington. They had about a 3-minute trailer that would just, you know, really give you goosebumps. And, you know, you mentioned the movie Ali. What happened with that movie is it got bumped right at the last minute. It got bumped out, I think, by the Ali movie, and there was only so much boxing room. Michael, I don't know if you've got that. I can see you thinking.
You know, I don't have it accessible, but
it's too long for this environment anyway.
Yeah.
But my point, you know, that's what I'm trying to get at is like now, if not, you know, like Joe, like the story of Joe Louis has got everything. It's got everything. I mean, it's got, you know, like, I mean, this is, I mean, it's got everything. It's got love story. It's got, I mean, you know, fight against like racial and, you know, injustice. I mean, and he's the guy that opened the door for like guys like Teddy Robinson. I mean, you know, Joe Louis broke the color barrier in golf, you know, later on. I mean, it's got everything, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when we first got going on this, we really didn't understand that all, you know. We thought it was a great brand. We thought it was a great opportunity, but long before we ever got to a moment where we were putting bourbon in a bottle, we really found ourselves in the midst of Joe Louis's legacy. And you know, and Joe Louis's legacy is tied to Detroit. And Joe Louis's legacy is tied to America and World War II, and just just so many amazing things. And so the context that we get involved with when we talk about our bourbon and our brand is endless.
Well, here's the thing: is like, you know, it all starts. You know, everything starts somewhere. So, you know, like I say, I've got the screenplay for a movie. And so, I mean, it's ready to go. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's like, but I mean, it's ready. I mean, if you guys have any interest, or if you mean, you know, movies
when
like
we get to 20,000 cases, come talk to me.
Well, my point is, I'm not saying, you know, even talking about like you guys finance, but I'm talking about like the more people, you know, the more people kind of organize around something, the more that something can get done. You know, I mean, something where it's like the city of Detroit gets involved, the teams get involved, you know. I mean, all these teams. I mean, to me, it's just something I've actually been holding off in putting the screenplay out there, like sending it out to Hollywood, because I've been trying to figure out a way to maybe keep this a little bit more, you know, in Detroit, like a little bit more of a local project where it doesn't get, you know, doesn't get Hollywoodized and the truth gets lost behind the fiction. So,
we'll catch up with you offline and we'll talk to you a little bit more about what we're doing with USA Boxing and the Golden Gloves.
Yeah.
And how that all ties into the legacy. And so we kind of grabbed, you know, where did our good friends from Man Cave go? I can see them on my screen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're still here.
Oh, goodness gracious. You dropped out of my screen. You guys are the shot.
We're here.
All right,
I'm just watching the video going across. So, you know, Al and Ron, you know, you guys are really, you're here in Michigan and Detroit, and you guys are really here to get out to our local watering holes and to our local liquor stores, I guess, for lack of a better term, to really help them understand what the Joe Louis brand is all about. What are some of the things that you're doing right now with everything that we're going through this pandemic? What are some of the things that you kind of had to tweak to get the Joe Louis brand out there a little bit more?
Well, everything. It had to be tweaked. We did a kickoff with the Southern Wine and Spirits team, and it was a virtual. It was a Zoom meeting kickoff. It's the first time in my career that I've launched a brand in that platform. So you got to do what you have to do and work with the tools available and move forward on it and take this story out to the market and show some folks. And then Al's had some success. I had some success with it. You know, it gives you that minute to pause and to tell that forgotten story. Yeah, there's Joe Louis Arena, There's the Joe Louis Monument downtown, but the story really isn't that well remembered in detail now.
100% agree.
But people want to connect with it, and it really resonates as you share it.
I 100% agree with that statement.
Al, you being a neighbor, because you're kind of here on because we're actually a couple of miles away from one another. You don't know that, but I do, because based on what you said earlier. But you're really focused more on the east side of Michigan, where Ron, you're more focused on the northern part of Michigan. Do I understand that right?
Well, Al crosses paths with us. He's in the street from me. Yeah, he's got a big territory.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm pretty much kind of like Big Beaver and heading north. So
gotcha.
So
wow,
that was me. Sorry, I'm in Detroit. That's our local fire truck going somewhere.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Like I was telling the guys earlier, I walked into one of my accounts, and before I even said the word Joe Louis, he goes, "Hey, do you know who's got Joe Louis bourbon? I need some, and I can't get hold of it yet." So I'm like, okay. I said, "How many do you need?"
Was that the wine garden?
I love that.
So that was awesome. Like, that's probably one of my favorites. It's like when you walk into that account before you say one word, it's like, "Oh, I'll take some."
Yeah.
So I have a question for Tara. Tara, how are you guys? How are you and your friends doing? I mean, we're in the, we're actually in the hospitality business ourselves here. How are people on the street doing in Detroit, and how are your coworkers managing through this period of time?
A variety of ways. A lot of us have been making cocktails at home and just posting to Instagram. We've had some help from local chapters, the bar guilds that a lot of us are involved in have been super helpful. I started teaching virtual cocktail classes, which has actually been super successful.
I love that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun for sure.
I could use a few lessons for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'm available. Just getting out and teaching people things they can do while they're in home, how to make cocktails from everyday items in their pantry. Or I know Wow Magazine started a video you could do using your kitchen. It was like you make the video yourself, and this is how you cook and make a cocktail in your kitchen, starring like locally known chefs and bartenders. And so there's a lot of different things you've been doing just to try to stay busy and that kind of thing. A lot of us have been reading books and trying to further our knowledge while we're off and hanging out at home. So
well, let's hope we're all back to work soon.
Yes.
So Tara, your regular patrons, are they able to reach out to you in any way, shape, or form? Not just for cocktails, but because a lot of folks in the bar, they thrive on tips, right? So are they able to reach out to you in any way, shape, or form to tip you if they enjoy what you do?
Yeah, so there's actually a website called Go Tip 'em that Nick Britsky started.
Nice.
And it has all of the bartenders. It has over 1,200 bartenders at this point, and you just look for our state and name, and then it's linked to like our Venmo or a PayPal or anything like that.
So you actually went in and registered for it in that website itself. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was curious how that worked out. I've heard about it. I was just kind of curious how, trying to get the word out to all the bartenders out there. They all need to get in there and do that, right?
Yeah. All you have to do is go on, and there's a button. I believe it's like the upper left-hand side of the website, and you can click and add yourself. It takes about 24 hours before your name shows up on the site.
Yeah, I think it's like 43 different states are represented by bartenders there right now.
It took off. It was such a great idea.
And Nick did that?
Yeah.
Yep.
What's the name of the website again?
Go Tip 'em.
Go Tip 'em, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go.
And speaking of tips,
yes, Michael.
I just didn't know if Jamie had anything to say.
Excellent.
So, all right. So, Tara, you're teaching bartending classes at home. You said you had a second cocktail using bourbon. What's the second mixture
The
you have on
second
tap?
one is actually just a classic cocktail, a Manhattan. And I just have to grab my glass, so I'm going to disappear for like 2 seconds.
All right. So I want to ask her about the bitters as well. How to Box by Joe
There you
Louis.
go.
Look at the
Where'd you
box.
find that, JJ? Wow.
Well, she's doing that. These are also an original sheet of stamps.
Oh wow!
Cool.
You've been collecting.
So that's my movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So Tara, you said a Manhattan?
Manhattan, yes. It's one of my favorite cocktails, and it's pretty easy to make because you can buy the ingredients at the store. So you just need a large glass, whether it be a pint glass or the bottom of a shaker, or something that you can mix in. And then you're going to do typically 2 to 4 dashes of bitters. I happen to like my drinks extremely bitter, so I do a little bit more, 6 to 8 bitters. So just right in. And then we're going to do an ounce of vermouth. So you can use sweet vermouth or you can use a dry vermouth. I like sweet. Koki is one of my favorite brands because you can drink it by itself. You can drink any vermouth by itself. I just happen to really like Koki. Super smooth and really rounds out any bourbon or any spirit that you pair it with. Nick!
Oh, there's Mr. Bitsky.
Hey, Nick.
Oh, he's on mute.
Nick, we're mixing a cocktail.
So an ounce of sweet vermouth right into your mixing glass. And then you're going to do 2 ounces of your bourbon.
The Joe Louis bourbon.
Joe Louis bourbon right in. All right, so this should be what it looks like. And then you're going to add your ice right in. And stir it. So when you're stirring it, I'm going to hold it up so you can see it. Make sure you never have your hand around it because you're going to warm up the cocktail. Right on the table. And you want to stir it until you start to see a little bit of condensation on the outside of the mixing glass or whatever it is that you're mixing in. All right.
Awesome.
And then I am just going to strain it right into my glass, and I will hold it up in 1 second so you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. Now, you can do it up in a stemmed cocktail glass. That's how I like my Manhattans, or you can do it on the rocks. And then you're going to want to garnish it with a cherry, or you can do an orange. I like oranges, so I'm going to take my orange and my peeler. And then if you're going to use an orange or citrus, anything like that, you just want to take the peel with the pith towards you and the outside of it and go right over the top of your cocktail. Then you're going to get all the oils from inside the peel right along the top. That way when you go to take a drink, you're going to get that citrus smell right off the top of the cocktail.
It kind of sets your palate up, doesn't it? When you do it that way with like the citrus around the rim, kind of sets your palate up for something different.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. No, it's good. I love, because I don't like super sweet, I always prefer citrus to a cherry and a Manhattan, but it's all preferential.
You know, bourbon is such a fun.
Yeah, it is. I'm a big bourbon drinker in general, so just.
All right, so Tara, the Detroit Club, and it's the Library Bar inside of there. How would you describe that place? Because I said it was swanky, but how would you describe it to folks for when it does reopen?
So we're actually we're a private club, but the Library Bar is actually open to the public at the moment. It's very laid back. We don't have tables in there. It's all lounge seating, a lot of couches, chairs, anything like that. The menu in there is all of mine and actually a bartender that I work with. We make all of our own syrups, bitters, juice our citrus every day. Our cocktails are a little off the wall because there's not much that we won't put in a cocktail. So veggies or any kind of random flavors you'll really find on the menu.
CDBs, whatever.
I haven't used that yet. But it's a fun atmosphere. It's super laid back. It's a good time, and the people I have behind the bar there, we're all super knowledgeable. At least we're always learning more, so we're very good at making off menu items or catering to what you like specifically, that kind of thing.
You guys challenge each other every once in a while to who's got the better drink, or you kind of try to fool them as to what's in the glass and what's not in the glass.
That's usually not a possibility, but we do challenge each other.
Fair.
So is there food available? Is there a food menu as well?
Yeah, there is. So we have small bites in the library. That's what's on our menu, but you do have access to the grill room menu, which is our fine dining restaurant. So you can get a lot of entrees in there. And then we actually have a cigar bar on the 3rd floor of the club, which I keep it pretty bourbon and scotch heavy up there. And they have some small bites up there also.
Right on. So is it a place that you definitely need reservations? Can you just kind of wander in?
You can wander in for the most part. If you're going to have dinner in the restaurant, I recommend making reservations on Open Table. But to get into the library, you can wander in at almost any time. It's a pretty big space. So, and we have the hotel. It's always open to the public. The spa. It's a full destination. You make a whole.
I think the real answer is we need a cell phone so we can call you, There's a table, we're coming in.
That's it.
You can do that.
The real thing is we need it to open so we can all go.
Right?
Yeah.
You and me both.
Yeah.
So, Nick, we were using your name in vain right before you got here because we were talking about tipping, Tara, and right now tipping bartenders and servers and waiters and people that aren't in a physical location. And you set up the website. Go tip them.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's one of many out there, but we thought of a very similar idea where basically we reached out to bartenders from across the U.S. We actually have representation from 49 states and D.C. Wow. And that's over 4,000 bartenders where we've included their Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, or a combination of the three. So the thinking is every time you post a drink on your social media, which we do almost instinctively now in this modern world, go ahead and tip a bartender that would have been with you, that Tara would have been right across from you. Send her a tip because it's going to help her get through this time. And then next time you're going to see her, she's going to have a smile, she's going to have a job, and everyone's going to be like, oh, we're back to normal. So that's why we developed Go Tip 'em. We actually just released a fun video that was a play off The Witcher. Toss a coin to your Witcher. So go check that out. That's on the stream right now.
I see you got something sitting on your desk there, Nick.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea. What is that? What do you got sitting there, man?
Have I missed the party? This is the Joe Louis bourbon. I haven't even opened it yet.
Yeah, mine is taking a hit. Mine is.
I really need to apologize. There are way more bottles needed in Michigan right now.
Yeah, there is. I could definitely. I want a bottle. Everybody's got a bottle of me.
The problem is that we want to make sure we can do that, but the Corbett situation has the whole situation totally screwed up, and we can't even get a bottle of our own bourbon out of the warehouse that's right there in Michigan right now. And so it's a little bit crazy.
So, when you watch our websites, watch our socials, because as soon as it becomes available, we will let you know, let everybody know that it's available. Get over to your honey spot and tell them to go out and find the Joe Louis bourbon. So,
there's now, I think, 38 locations that we updated the website with, Ron. Is that what it was? And you've got we're working on another 20 or so.
Yeah, we had 38 right now. We got another 20 that we heard about. We'll have more by the weekend. So it's rolling day by day. I can throw a few out there just to kind of spatter around north, south, east, west, if that sounds good.
Yeah, please.
Do it.
A&L Wine Shop on Stadium in Ann Arbor. Brass Mug in Livonia. And then Keg and Wine in Redford.
Okay.
Pine Dot Wine Shop up by me.
That's in Clarkston, right?
That's in Clarkston.
Yeah. And then one of my favorite names I've ever seen for a store, it's Super Fine Wine and Liquor.
Super Fine.
Nice.
I'm going to throw a few of them out there just since.
Yeah, go, Al. Go.
So
Absolutely. Yeah.
You got A&B in Utica, Vintage Wine Shop on Orchard Lake and kind of like West Bloomfield area.
Farmington, West Bloomfield area?
Yep. Okay. So you got Zaytunas and Outback Gas Station, which is the one that took 12 bottles in. Happy Hour in Auburn Hills also got some. So there's quite a few. I sent a list to Peter of close to 60 accounts that are going to end up having it.
We're very excited.
Thank you, Al.
There's a locator on the website. If you go to joelewisbourbon.com. You can find the locator there and get you in the right direction for a store and a retailer that's gonna have it. Nick, I saw you swirling things around over there. He's very pensive. Look at him. Nick is serious when it comes to drinking. Nick is one serious character. Nick, what do you got? What are you feeling?
Well, so right off the bat, I dig it because it is a 45% and it doesn't drink like it. You know, this thing is super smooth. It has just enough bite on it. I think it has a nice balance. I feel like I taste a little bit of barley in there, a little bit of wheat. I could be wrong, but this is a tasty mix. I think the bottle is absolutely gorgeous. I love the cutout. I love the crowd in the background. I think this is a good combo, and I think it's a great play for Metro Detroit.
Fantastic, Nick. Love that. I think you're right on the barley. I definitely picked that up, particularly on the end. Tara was talking about how it was a bit sweet across the front of the palate. That's how I felt. But for me, it finishes a little bit peppery.
See, and that's what I love about bourbon, guys, and guys and gals, is that bourbon, everyone's palate is so different. Everybody gets a different flavor note out of it. One of my most favorite things about drinking bourbon in itself is that everything is so minute. Your palate is so different, and you have to really try things to really figure it out. So, thank you everyone, for sharing.
Yeah. But Charles, all right, let's go back. Cause Charles, we talked about the book in general, and like the 30 plus championships and the championship celebration. The book that you wrote, Detroit City of Champions. How does Joe Louis enter into the story when he enters your book? How is Joe introduced into your book?
He's always Joe always starts off in the beginning. He always leads off. That's really, I think that's the best spot. Really almost kind of chronologically too. Just because the 1935 season, when we think of the 35 as like all these championships, that's where like a lot of times like the conversation begins. But the reality is that the real story begins in 1934. Because in 1934, Detroit was a completely different like sports atmosphere than it ended up becoming. And it really shows you like from 1934 to really the end, 1936, when the whole thing ends, like how much different Detroit was just on account of this one single year. Prior to 1935, in 1934, Joe Louis like didn't exist. He existed, but nobody knew who he was. He was still an amateur at that time. Prior to 1934, the Tigers had finished in fifth place 5 consecutive years. They were a dreadful team. Their attendance had not been as bad since 1907. They had no money. Nobody wanted to go watch the Tigers in the middle of the Great Depression. The team was terrible. The Red Wings had changed their names 3 times in 5 years. The Lions didn't exist prior to 1934. They only moved to Detroit on account of the Detroit Tigers when they came out of nowhere in 1934. Like I say, that's why I like to start with Joe Louis, because here's this guy that nobody knows who he is. That's where he is. The story is just this one man living in Detroit. He's an amateur, and he's coming up through the ranks of the amateurs really, strong, but he's not ranked by Ring Magazine, and he's a black fighter. Black fighters back then had no chance. Nick,
Charles, you make a very interesting point there. Just want to dive onto that just a tad bit more. When at that moment in time, a black man hadn't been considered to be given a title fight since Jack Johnson.
Exactly. Yep.
30 years.
Yeah.
Since the black guy was given the opportunity to fight, and Joe Louis, through a lot of very complicated stuff, some of it's not that great a story, was able to rise up and to get that opportunity, and boy, did he take advantage of it.
Well, actually, it's actually a great story to tell. That how we get like the mechanics of how we got the opportunity, I think, is a fascinating story, and I can shed some light on it if you guys are interested in it.
Please.
Yeah. So anyways, as you're mentioning, he had no Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson was, the first black heavyweight champion. And so but you know, Jack Johnson would be more akin to like a modern day NFL wide receiver than than it was. And so, you know, where every time he won a fight, he was like really bombastic about it. You know, he was like rubbing it in people's faces. He was just, and you know, there's a debate about that, like whether, you know, he should have done that or, you know, but at the same time, it's like, you know, some people say, well, you know, he's an American, he can do whatever he wants to, and that's fine. But there's no doubt about the you know, the effect of him having done so is that it sort of created this mentality in the media that like no black man will ever have a chance to do that again. Like this door is shut for black boxers forever. And so when Joe Louis came along, he was incredible. I mean, he was incredible. Everybody, like a lot of people recognized his ability right off the bat. They recognized how great he was. So all these, you know, he had, you know, people sponsoring managers that were putting all kinds of money into him and all this different stuff to train him out of boxing and all that. But they knew that him getting a chance at the heavyweight championship was like an incredible long shot. I mean, it was an incredible long shot. But at the same time, there was a huge boxing at that time was on life support. There was, you know, gambling was rife. There really was no massive draw for the sport. Like Max Baer was somewhat of a draw, but he was, you know, because he was a total entertainer. Max Baer, you know, he's one of the greats too, but there was no like super draw like that. And so the idea was that and even more specifically, there was a war going on for Madison Square Gardens, which was at the epicenter of boxing in this country for the first half of the century. And so anyways, there's a guy looking on from the guy that was looking on from the outside in, looking at Madison Square Gardens, wanting to he was a boxing promoter named Mike Jacobs. And so he looked at the situation. He's like, he was trying to break into big time boxing, and Madison Square Gardens was how he wanted to get in. But he needed somebody, a superstar, in order to, you know, to have the biggest and best fights. And that's why he saw Joe Louis and was like, this guy's great. He's like, he might be black, but he's also destroys people every single time he gets in a ring. He like just leaves it. It's like a bloodbath. He's like, that's what fight fans like to watch, are just, you know, a bloodbath, you know, so anyways, so he came up with an idea of how to make this happen. And the idea is that the Madison Square Gardens had the benefit for years. They had the benefit of free advertisements by the Hearst newspapers. And the idea was that every time there was a boxing match or whatever event at the Madison Square Gardens, then the Hearst newspapers, all the reporters would give them all kinds of hype. Like, this is about to be the biggest fight. This is about to be the biggest hockey game, whatever. Like, they just do free hype. And in exchange, the Madison Square Gardens would give a cut of their gate receipts to William Randolph Hearst's wife, Millicent. And because she had a charity called the Milk Fund for Babies. And so that cut of that gate would go to the Hearst Fund for Babies. But as the Great Depression sunk in, that amount of money that was coming from the Gardens got less and less and less and less. And so Mike Jacobs was smart enough to recognize that and go to the reporters themselves and say, if you turn your attention towards me and give me that same hype and the fighters I promote, then I will give you a massive cut of all gates that we do. And I might even find a way to chip in a couple of coins for you, the reporter, as well. You see, and so that was the idea, and so that's how he diverted that attention from the people that were currently running Madison Square Gardens, which actually literally denied Joe Louis a chance at the. They denied. They even said some racist stuff to him over the phone, saying you'll never fight here. And so that's what made Joe Louis want to absolutely sign with Mike Jacobs and say, Mike Jacobs came up with the concept of saying, what we're going to do, Joe, is use my new hype machine to build you up. We're going to send you out to the West, like go through Pittsburgh and California. And every time you win a fight, where the newspaper reporters in New York are going to like hype up the fight saying, there's this invincible warrior out West.
From Detroit.
And he's making his way east. Like eventually he's going to get to Detroit, get to New York. And then it's going to, and he's just going to change everything. That was the idea. And so that's what it was. So Joe Louis did this basically hype tour. So he had 5 fights. And after every fight, there was just crazy newspaper coverage talking about how this incredible boxer has been discovered and all this. And so by the time Joe Louis came to New York for his first fight, and it was against Primo Carnera, and it was actually at Yankee Stadium instead of Madison Square Garden. And when Joe Louis got there, all the porters and there was so much excitement for Joe Louis when he arrived in New York for the first time that they carried him off the train. Like there was like a mob of people and they carried him off of the train.
How many people did that take? I wonder.
I don't know, but there is actually a photo. There is a photo I actually have in my second book that shows Joe getting carried off the train. It's just, and then like his training camps. He had a training camp in Pompton Lakes, and there was it was like an entire city of people gathered there for I think it was 2 weeks. That it was just every single day. It was like a small city gathered at this training camp, and it was just Joe Louis mania. And then when he fought Primo Carnera, they called him the Man Mountain from Italia, 6'6" monster. What's that?
The Giant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Giant. He was 6'6". He's like the biggest man you've ever seen in the boxing.
Right, and it biggest was man really, ever. In some ways, it was really a prelude to the Schmeling fight because Primo was basically one of Mussolini's guys, and it was all wrapped up in the whole larger fascist Nazi World War.
Yeah, they definitely hyped that up because at that moment Mussolini was attacking Ethiopia like as a colonial power attacking this, and so they hyped it up as a Italy versus Ethiopia type situation. The media did. It was like a nationalistic type of a situation. But Primo was just Primo. It's like a lot of times the Primo fight gets lost in the stuff that Joe did. But Primo Carnera, and then even the newspaper reporters, they were even after the fight, they were like, Joe just destroyed Primo, But if you watch the fight, I'm telling you, the fight with Joe Louis versus Primo Carnera is one of the best fights you will ever see. Joe,
love it.
Primo Carnera does not stop swinging the entire fight. It's a nonstop barrage of punches. And Joe, it's like you're watching. It looks like a little kid fighting a full-grown man. And the full-grown man does not stop swinging. No matter how many times Joe hits him and knocks him down, he does not stop swinging the entire fight. Like I dare anybody to watch that fight and say that was a walkover. I mean, it was a walkover for Joe. Like when you watch him dismantle him, but I mean, you have to be. Yeah, there it is, right there. Yeah, you have to be an absolute. Joe Louis stands toe to toe with this monster. And it's just like dodge, punch, just crazy.
How can you not love Joe Louis?
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. And then like I say, the sad thing is that right at this moment, Max Bayer loses his fight to James Braddock and loses the title, and so now Joe Louis had this incredible year, and Joe can't even win the title this year. That's what was really sad about that whole thing. That's what I'm saying. That was like sort of the hidden loss behind the movie Cinderella Man, which they don't talk about. It's like, it prevented Joe from getting the belt for another 2 years. And then when he got his chance at the belt, he had to give up 10% of his next 10 fights earnings just to get a chance at the belt.
Well, that's a whole different story, though, isn't it? I mean, we get stuck. If we start getting into that issue, we're going to be here for 2 days.
Look at the size of Primo. He's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
He's
so we're rolling
too.
the video while we're doing it too. Unbelievable.
Wow.
So, man, Charles, we're gonna hang out and tell a whole bunch of Detroit stories.
We got weeks, man.
We're doing.
Yeah, I'm on whenever, man. I'm on house lockdown, so I'm reading, writing, and telling stories. I'd love to. I have fun.
We're doing Detroit City of Champions as its own podcast, and that's coming very, very soon. Because I'm so enamored when he starts talking. He's such a good storyteller, and
I appreciate that. I enjoy doing it.
So, hey, there's people watching and following along. We got stuff streaming on Facebook, and Scott Dongo chimed in. David Gee, he wants some up in Maine. Who else chimed in? David wants to know if is there any online liquor sales coming out of the chat room. Corey Abbott.
I'm wanting to know the same question.
Not for folks who are not in Michigan. It appears as though will be available online for sale shortly. And when I say shortly, I'm hoping within 10 days. Ron, that's to you. Inside of Michigan, it's a little bit more of a challenge. We can't ship inside of Michigan today. And for folks inside of Michigan, you'll need to go out and find a retail location. You can look online on the locations, and you'll find a variety of places. I'm I'm told by Al that we'll have hundreds of stores soon. And so
very easily.
And we'll all be looking up Tara to ask her to mix us a good drink when we all get back to work, and I can't wait for that.
And we've had folks. I've had folks chime in. I did a watch party on Facebook, and we've had folks chime in from South Carolina. We've had folks chime in from Georgia, even down from Florida. So cannot thank everyone enough for their support. Let everyone know that there is a bourbon called Joe Louis Bourbon, and try ask for it. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, we're trying to get everyone to, we're going to stay as fresh as we can on the list on the website in terms of locations in Michigan that have it. Mm-hmm. But frankly, just call, keep calling and ask for it.
All you got to do. Just ask for it. Where's Joe?
Tasting Tuesday. Let's do this again next Tuesday. Everybody up for another?
Yeah, great.
We might need to get some more. We may need to get some more samples, but yeah.
I'm running dangerously low over here.
I'm working on it.
No, you're good, Peter.
Fair play. All right, JoeLouisBourbon.com, ManCaveHappyHour.com. Nick Drinks. What's the where do people get a hold of you, Nick?
Honestly, I'm going to put Nick Drinks on a hold. Go to gotipem.com, GOTIPEM, and we can look at Nick Drinks in a couple months.
So, all right. So, I'm gonna go there right after the show, and I'm gonna lay down a tip for Tara because you are awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and pouring a couple for us. We really appreciate it.
Her bar back is there.
Yes.
And if I can do a quick shout out, we're actually we're going to talk to Tara's friend Roger tonight on Nick Drinks, and we're going to talk to Matt Buskard from Bobcat Bonnie's, along with my friend Joe Hakeem, and we're going to talk about just how COVID has affected the industry, both on the bar side and the restaurant side. So if you are still hanging around and you're still sober around 8 o'clock, come check out that stream.
That's funny.
That's funny. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
All right, thanks everybody. This was great fun.
Take care now. Great fun. Thank you. Good night.
All right.
Thanks for the partnership.
Nice to meet you guys. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you as well.